Experts by experience. Real conversations, real people, real stories. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast episode. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, bringing together the worlds of literature and criminal justice. I'm really pleased to be joined by Sara Cullen, author of Blood Red Sky. Now, let's get into the book. For me, it was a very powerful and deeply affecting young adult novel centered around the character of Aaron, who's a 16-year-old boy that spends some time on remand for an offense he didn't commit. Now, when I was reading this book, for me, Blood Red Sky illustrates what happens when society can give up on children too early and what's possible when we operate from a place of understanding, compassion, and second chances instead. So, when I was reading this book, Sarah, I noticed in the back you kind of spoke about your extensive background in child welfare and advocacy. And I know that you've worked really closely with care experienced people. So, for listeners that are new to you, can you tell us more about what the book is about from your perspective and maybe how your previous experiences have shaped the narratives and themes that rose up in this story?
Oh, I don't even know where to start with that. But there's a few bits in your question that I want to pick apart. So, first of all, why was the story the right one to tell? Well, because I was a teacher, so I was an English teacher. And then after that, I was a guidance teacher, which in Scotland means you've got a caseload and you're responsible for everyone's everything. So your timetable, you're being bullied, you want to go to university, any spectrum of things, you go to your guidance teacher, which is a big thing to do for children. But what just became so obvious, and maybe I was a bit late to the party with this one, is it's all determined really before you're born, how you're going to function and find school and manage. And some people, the odds are stacked against them, and some people, the odds are with them. And actually, so I was dealing with children who things would happen, difficult things would happen, and some children would be okay. They would manage. Their mom and dad would come in, whoever would come in, granny, help them out, back on track. And then other children just were not, that wasn't happening. And it made me just wonder, what is going on here? Because school can only do so much for children. School will try, teachers do try very, very hard, most teachers, not all teachers, most teachers. And the behavior that you started to see really was communication about how they were feeling. And then everyone takes that personally, and then people get excluded, and then they're more likely to not get exam results, and then they're more likely to have, poorer outcomes. But I didn't really know that as a young teacher. I just knew what I was seeing. And then this care experience kind of thing, that's kind of thrown around, this kind of term. And actually, but what does that mean? So I tried to explore that in the book. Care experienced, it's a kind of sanitized language around really the flip side of that is really child removal. And I think care experience language, it annoys me because what it really means is a child has been removed from a parent, and children don't want to be removed from their parents, and parents don't want their children removed from them. And then the more I learned about this, one of the driving factors behind that is housing, which is actually a preventable problem. So it's not the child's behavior that's the problem. It's the structure behind the child in which it was born into. So that was, really quite important. And then what I became drawn to as a guidance teacher, it seemed to be drawn to me rather than I wasn't looking for it, was the kind of 16-year-old bad boys. And I say that with the smile on my face because I loved them, right? But the bad boys who, once I was called, the story I always remember was once I was called to the woodwork room, like the techie, the department, where one of my bad boys had thrown a hammer at another boy. And the solution to that was to call me because he liked me. And I thought, right, you've thrown a hammer at him, which could have really hurt him. The headmaster's about to, put you out of the school, but a solution has been found. So I had to walk into this techie room, say to this chap, it's not very nice to throw a hammer. And he goes, I know.
Smart, it really isn't.
Please throw a hammer. But the relationship was there that he would come with me and apologize for throwing the hammer. And I thought, so it's not school, it's people. That story always sticks in my mind because I was like, oh, am I going to get a hammer thrown at me? But of course I didn't. because I said, so that's where this came from. But then I did have a particular pupil who I tried every single trick in the book that you can possibly imagine, and it didn't change the outcome. It didn't change the outcome. So that's kind of where it came from. And then I got a job in public protection in 2019, which again, public protection to me is a sanitized language. It's really like supporting children who've been abused. And the services intervening, police, social work, and health. And actually, I just became so incensed by this that these young children who'd gone in on who were now behaving like this had actually been through child protection processes themselves, and then a lot of them were on their way to remand. So the cycle just kept on going. So I thought, right, I'm going to start writing a story here about this, and then the pandemic hit. So then I saw, okay, what's really happening here, and that's where the story kind of went. So the story changed quite a lot as it was being written.
Yeah, that was a really unique angle, wasn't it? The fact that Aaron, the main character, was in prison or on remand during the COVID era, and like what impact that had on him and his freedom, and what his rehabilitation looked like.
None.
No, that was really interesting. Yeah. Um, are there any other experiences or inspirations that shaped the story or writing the story for you?
Well, there was a couple of things that collided around the time of the writing. So there's a few people in Scotland who are really, really trying to really raise the bar about these issues. And, Graham Armstrong, he wrote a story called The Young Teen, which is phenomenal. It's written in Scots, and it's about being the young boy. And I was never a young Scottish boy, so I don't have that unique angle on it. But, Graham really kind of paved the way for everybody else to start talking about this. Shoggy Bain, of course, put Scotland on the map. So there was that. But then there's Darren McGarvey, who, really challenges people to look at why the society is like this and, takes no prisoners. It's like this because of decisions that are made at government level. And that was, but it's quite important to not sit in your ivory tower and think you know best, because you really don't. And then towards the tail end of the experience, Margaret MacDonald wrote Glasgow Boys, and that was just a beautiful story of care experience boys and love, and the absence of love, and the absence of touch and hugs. So all of these people are kind of all around the Scottish literary scene at the moment, and it just felt like my own unique angle on this was the multi-perspective of the multi-agency work, because that's my job in real life, is multi-agency public protection. So, yep, that's it. But my pupils is where this story came from, really.
That is amazing. And I could really, really feel that through how many characters were in the book and how many moving parts were in the book. Yeah, that's amazing. And I feel like I learnt new slangs as well. I did not know about, how do you pronounce it? Barnes? Barnes?
Bairns.
Barnes. Yeah, I didn't know. I had to Google it quickly because I was like, why do they keep saying this? And what does that mean? For anyone listening, it means children or young child. I think. I hope so. Yeah, yeah. It
It was
was
like when I read A Clockwork Orange and I had to learn Russian, like Russian slang.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, so I can tell that there were a lot of themes in this book, and I think the biggest one that stood out to me was the theme of age. And throughout the book, you make it very, very clear that Aaron exists in like this limbo between youth and adulthood. It's like, oh, he's 16. Oh, he's an adult now. There was just this back and forth and this tension between him being a child, but also being an adult. And we also get to see the very vivid impact of his imprisonment on Dylan and Chloe, his siblings. And kind of like you mentioned earlier, some kids will kind of go to school and get on with it despite experiencing the whole thing. We kind of saw that with Chloe, whereas some children will process it really difficult. It will be a difficult thing for them to process. And it was tough on the wider family in general. So I think based on that, what did you want readers to understand about the adultification of young people and the ripple effects of criminalizing a young person?
Well, I wanted people to remember that no one's born a perpetrator of crime, first of all. Babies are beautiful. They are the best thing. They are magic. They are born into the world completely innocent and needing everybody to love them. They're completely helpless. And that's why I tried to bring the reader back to when Dylan and Aaron and Chloe were in nursery. And
Yes.
Aaron is the only one she will who can help her. And it's to remind everybody that siblings are your first friends if you're lucky. And you meet your siblings, they're your partners throughout life if you're lucky. And even if you don't like them and you've nothing in common with them, you're still going to need them at some point. So I try to bring everybody through a journey of sisters and brothers and how much they need each other and how much they love each other. And there's academic work everywhere about this, like The Promise in Scotland, which I won't go into, but people can look it up. And there's academia everywhere. And my sister did a PhD she did her PhD in less time than it took me to write this book. I could have done a
Oh, wow.
sorry, you've justice. I could have done a PhD on it. I didn't want to because PhDs are harder for people to access. Everyone can think about little children. Everyone's been a little child. So there's all this stuff with the sentencing guidelines and under 25s and brain development, but people still don't care because when a 21-year-old commits a crime and it's in the news, understandably, people are angry, lock them up, there's all of that. But actually, I'm not trying to tell that to people. I'm trying to say, but remember what little boys are like. And if they've seen violence, they've felt violence, they've had to lock the door to protect their sister, how could you not then care about that person? And then I point as later on, I show him in the book and he tries to help the woman with the buggy, but she phones the police because...
Yeah, she don't have it. Yeah.
And she's scared though. She's scared because it's her baby. So it's about like, I don't know. If someone came at me, if some, youngster with his hood up on a dark night came at me with my buggy, I might also call the police because I could also have been the mother. So it's multi-perspective. But we know that we know that trauma shapes the brain. If you're lucky, you've got stories in a nice cozy house. But if housing is, I'm going to keep talking about housing, it's a driving factor in childhood experiences. So, every perpetrator was someone's baby, and criminalization, when it comes in, that's it. You can't take that back. So Scotland is doing really so much work about youth intervention, and the age of the child is older, and custody-based sentences. But remand is just a breach of human rights unless that person is really too dangerous to be on the street, which is fine, and that's where it's needed. Remand ruins people's lives. They're taken from the court. They don't have their stuff. They don't have phone numbers. I tried to show all of that with Aaron. He doesn't know his mum's number because youngsters don't have mum's number.
He's young, yeah.
No one knows mobile numbers. So, but then what I also tried to show was his dad, who everyone hates at the start of the book, was also...
I don't like his dad personally.
No one likes his dad, but I tried to... His dad was also someone's child, though, and his dad was also someone's brother. So I'm trying to just pull people into the story. Well, okay, he's the most vile man in the town, and he says this in the custody court, and everyone's scared of him, but he was once a scared little boy. And I'm not trying to excuse people's behavior. I am not trying to excuse violent people's behavior, not at all. I'm trying to help people understand it. And remand and imprisonment, all of a sudden they're left with the grief, but nobody's died and nobody cares. Everyone is like, well, he deserved it, he's done the crime, but actually that's just a little girl who's lost her brother. So it was just the multi-perspective thing's really important, I think, for me.
Definitely. And I think you captured that really well with the quick chapters and different, you don't know who's talking until like they mention somebody else. And then you're like, oh, we're in this person's mind, we're in this person's memory, which was really exciting to read. And it's great that you actually mentioned about the dad, because I didn't like him either. I was even telling Jess, I was like, I didn't like him, but I think you mentioning like he had his own like kind of flashback as well with his brother going to prison too. So I think obviously we'll discuss that a little bit later, but yeah, thank you for putting that into perspective. So another thing that I really appreciated about the book is how quietly distinctive Blood Red Sky is. I think kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, the themes aren't just handed to the reader. Like you slowly uncover these themes of like poverty, family breakdown, self-harm, maybe suicide, all of these areas, and they're uncovered slowly through the characters. And I think that's what made it really engaging, because it's like you don't just tell us that they're a struggling family. It's revealed through things they do, like going to the food bank, going hungry all day. So all together, I feel like the novel really explores very real and painful issues that surrounds youth offending, which is something that you've mentioned. A lot of the time, it's the system that's around them. It's their environment. Kind of, someone referenced it as like a geographical lottery. If you're born in a certain environment, in a certain place that gives you these certain privileges, you're set up. You have the mind frame and the confidence to be set up for the rest of your life. But for Aaron and his siblings, it wasn't like that. So when it came to writing these realities, how did you approach it, and how was it to write it in a way that was honest but still rooted in dignity, care, and hope for all the young people involved and the young people that might relate to these situations?
Well, that's very kind that you said I managed to do that. So thank you. But all I tried to do was just show people that naughty boy that you're seeing in the street, that guy who's taking drugs down the beach, that boy who's done this is setting the fire, the girl who's not got her uniform on, who's cheeky and rude and gobby, um, and walks away from the teachers and gets, gets in trouble. But what's it like from her eyes? Like, if you look at this story, what it's like for her to wake up in the morning and be cold and hungry. You show me the professional person who's in the government who wakes up cold and hungry. They don't exist. So they don't know. And housing, sorry, and that's probably the 10th time I've mentioned housing, but housing. And this is why I wrote fiction, because I can't remember numbers. I looked at Trident, for example, this morning, and you're talking billions, but you families who don't have food in their cupboards. And I'm sorry, but that just doesn't add up to me. So, yep, I just tried to show it from the inside out.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I think, and I could really feel that. So yeah, moving forward, we touched on this a little bit earlier about people who care. And in your professional experience and your background, you were able to touch the lives of children because they cared about you and you cared about them and they could feel that. So I wanted to mention throughout the book, we meet professionals who kind of act as like beacons of hope, whether it's the social worker or the guidance counselor, Mr. B, Mr. Baker, all these characters who just seem to be that person that the siblings can relate to. And by the end of the book, the final sheriff takes a family first approach. The idea that you created for family first within the book, can you tell us more about what that means in the story and why it mattered for you to include that?
Well, people keep asking me, is family first real? And it's not
I
real.
googled it as well.
Yes, you I googled it. And even people who've been in prison have asked me if it's real. The reason they're asking me that is because it's possible.
Yeah, okay.
And this is why I'm so happy that this is a possibility. Money can be invested wherever it's decided to be invested. So you can invest it in Trident, you can invest it in more prisons, you can invest it in tasers, you can invest it in whatever you like, or you could invest it in families, because nobody can recover on their own. And teachers can do this, social workers can do that, prison guards can do this, but that's not going to cut it. It will cut for the odd person, for the occasional person. So teachers cannot do it on their own. And that's why families first. People keep asking me, is it true? It's not, but it's possible. And that's why people ask me if it's true. And it would cost less than it does to keep everybody in prison on remand.
Wow. So when I was reading it, full context for the listeners, the sheriff sends Aaron and his family away to like this pilot program where they go away to like cottages in a village where they are required to complete like an intensive like family therapy. Yeah, the whole family therapy. And they kind of live away. They're removed from the area that they were present in. Um, yeah, I really was Googling that because I was thinking, what is, because I've heard of family first as like a concept within like social work and stuff as an approach, but I never thought it was. So yeah, I don't know, maybe that
I wrote you.
yeah,
Basically.
it was. I was saying to Jess, it was very utopic. I was thinking, oh, maybe this could be a thing. But yeah, thank you for that. So moving forward, we've got two more questions to ask you. We notice that there's a strong theme of incarceration throughout the book as well, within Aaron's family, and that history kind of sits very quietly behind Aaron's story. So I was wondering, what were you hoping to show about the cycles of reoffending and how it affects families, and why is it so hard for young people to break out of them without meaningful support?
Well, I wrote a sentence here, and I just want to say it. Like, happy children don't set schools on fire. But what I really want people to take with them from this question is, stop putting people on remand unless they're really dangerous, which there are really dangerous people. I'm not saying there aren't. But community-based orders with mentors, with proper housing, and invest in mothers. Like, invest in mothers, start recognizing postnatal problems for what they are, put the money into women and children, put the money into housing, teach people how to cook healthy food. Like, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, hit the bottom level first. Like, hit that with safety. Let babies come out of that hospital home to safety. And I'm not talking about small little community interventions. I'm talking about an overhaul of the system, really, because there is enough money in the world. There is enough money kicking around to like other countries in Scandinavia, they do housing models where you don't need to prove anything. You just have to apply, you get it, young people get safe. And so, people might say, oh, what's she talking about? She's too idealistic. But, well, am I? Or is there just other ways of running a country? And, remand, we have to remember people's human rights they are innocent until they are proven guilty. And that, no matter how much you might dislike somebody's swagger or somebody's mannerisms or how someone behaves, because we need to invest in mothers and their children and start the family unit off at the start. Because I mean, I liked what you said. Your thing is people, place, and purpose, isn't it?
Yes, I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
Like people, put the money into people, but place, nobody can be happy if they're cold and hungry. And I would challenge anyone in any position of power to disagree with that. And purpose, if youngsters don't have a mentor, no one said, actually, you're really good at art, you're really good at the guitar. You'll see the music through my book because I'm obsessed with music. But
yes, I could tell there was songs throughout. There was
and our song voices. That's from my band. My band.
Yes, I read about that. Yeah.
But music, I had an amazing music teacher in school called Miss Cook, and I had an amazing English teacher called Mr. Ryan. But people might be good at woodwork, they might be good at gardening, they might be good at anything, art. And how are people supposed to think past school and past 16 if they don't have a purpose? If what the family's purpose has been crime, organised crime, violence, domestic violence in prison and drugs, how are people going to think, oh, actually, I'll go and do some crocheting? They're not going to. So it needs to start much younger.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. I was even going to ask you the last question. What do you want people to take with them when they read Blood Red Sky? But I feel like you've really summarized that in the fact that understanding that nobody is born a perpetrator, and support from the get-go and grace given to young people is super, super important. Do you have any parting words or any parting statements before we kind of round up this episode?
I'm just really grateful to have a chance to talk about these topics. And if anyone listens to this, just remember, educate yourself, control the things you can control. And anyone who reads the book and likes it, just let me know. And I think that the people in the jobs who are doing the jobs, like yourself, teachers, prison guards, there's rotten apples, of course, but most people are in those jobs because they really care about outcomes. So there is hope. And I'm really honoured and privileged to be able to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honoured and privileged to have read this book and had this conversation with you. Yeah, I really appreciate all the sentiments that you shared. Amazing book. And everybody that is listening, please, please, please take some time to get yourself a copy and have a read. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll catch you next time. Experts by Experience is brought to you by Catch22. For more episodes, visit www.catch-22.org.uk.